Fuck me, man. Fuck.
Wow, you look good today.
Thank you. Fucking Christ. Is that a spider just like literally just run across me right at the last second there? Woo! Get your blood pumping a little bit.
Spider, huh? That'll do it.
Them. I don't hate them. They don't bother me, and unless they're like right there. Like if I see one on the wall across from me, I'm not freaking out.
Yeah, I don't like to kill spiders because I believe they eat the other bug.
They do.
They're protectors.
They have utility. They're utility insects.
Yep.
Non-fungible spiders.
They also seem engaged in battle, whereas other bugs
they prep. Yeah, they
if you posture a spider, it is now on the attack, and I feel like it waits for you to be your guard to be, or as the kids say, wait for you to be lacking. If you're lacking, yeah, spiders make their moves. So.
Ooh, that's a good one. I've been trying to learn the new slang, like on
lacking.
God. And
yeah,
cap.
6ix9ine got very passionate on a podcast about another rapper who, rest in peace, unfortunately got killed, and he was very insistent that he was lacking, which is why it happened. The podcast host seemed to be offended by the suggestion. It is a very charged word, this lacking.
Okay, so proceed with caution, I guess?
Yes, proceed.
Okay.
You do not want to be lacking. That's bottom line.
For real. On God.
On God.
Shit's blessed, man.
Yeah. All right, let's get this bussing.
There we go. What's going on? How was your weekend?
My weekend was like a fine wine.
It just got better over time?
Cellar, and only comes out on
you finished it quickly.
No. Locked in a cellar and only comes out on nice occasion.
Oh, gotcha. That's what your weekend was like?
Yes. Never mind. How was your weekend?
Yeah, it was all right, man. It was all right. I want to say that like I got up to something special, but I like nothing crazy. Just trying to do the self-care, thing. Staying active. Been going to the gym a lot.
Right.
Actually, I've lost almost 25 pounds since probably like May, June, somewhere in there.
Guess what? I found it.
Did you?
Yeah, you lost it. I found it.
Yeah, it happens quickly, right? When you take your kind of your foot off the gas pedal. I had pizza and wings like last night, and then Yo, actually, you know what else I saw? Top Gun last night, the new one in theaters.
Oh yeah, I know. Everyone's crowing about it.
Yeah, well, it's been out for a while, but I think that there's like a distinct lack of like movie theater movies lately because I was very surprised. I was with my kid, and I was like, I haven't been to the movies since before the pandemic. Like, let's go check one out. So I looked at what was on there, and I saw like Top Gun was still there, and I was like, oh man, I thought I had missed my opportunity to go see this on a big screen. Lo and behold, still up for the viewing, and it was great. You've seen the original, I take it.
Yeah. No, I mean, spoiler alert to everyone out there: Goose is still dead.
Yeah.
And I'm curious though. How do you guys? Does Canada have an air force? What?
Oh yeah, man.
For you, see that was
one of the best air forces in the world.
Seriously, I know.
Oh okay. I got to play this.
This was a Canada joke.
Yeah.
No, we fling hockey sticks into the air and try to hit our target, and that's basically our.
I just fell victim of this, but Canadians get really sensitive when Americans poke fun at them. And it's like it's a little brother syndrome, 100%, right? But like,
yeah.
I'm more used to it, and I just like you just caught me. But like, some people get really fired up at the suggestion that America doesn't think that Canada is amazing.
Here's two people you do not fuck with that are very, very unsuspecting: Canadians and Hawaiians. Okay. You will be buried in a fucking beach or left to die in an ice fishing pond if you screw with the wrong Canadian or the wrong Hawaiian. They say, you see the ads, they're all happy, come to our island, we're in the Lays. Same thing with Canada. Oh, everyone's friendly. You want to get a double-double at Tim Hub, blah, blah, blah. They
Oh yeah,
kill
freaking
you. They will kill you. And they smile, and it's just like, it's like those creepy movies where everyone in the town does a human sacrifice, but then you go back to normal life the next day.
Yeah, I gotta say, man. I mean, I don't think. I think Canadians, the friendliness aspect of it is, maybe it's just the area I'm in, but like I think it's incredibly overrated. Unless you go out to like the East Coast, and those are some really friendly, hospitable people.
Yeah.
By and large, I mean, I've been to cities in the States where I feel more welcome than I do in like my own city or something like that, you know?
New York is perceived as very rude, and
Yeah, I have heard that. Yeah.
has its stereotype, and the people who live there, you live a more nuanced life because all that shit fades into the background. But when new people see it, to them it is, it's novel, so it stands out more. That's where all the confusion happens. Anyway,
You're right.
Web3, stocks, markets, gambling. Let's do that.
Yeah, let's get into it. All right, I'm going to pull up this screen and turn the music off. We had a good weekend in crypto land. Well, at least for a very brief period of time, we had ETH cross over the $2,000 mark, which is a huge psychological barrier. Didn't last for very long. It did drop down, and then we got, I would say, what I would call a pretty healthy pullback down to just under 1,900. We're sitting at $1,889.96 for ETH. I think anytime you cross that psychological barrier and then pull back under it, the natural reaction is that it's a very bad and very dramatic pullback, but 5% over the course of 24 hours, nothing too crazy in crypto world. Bitcoin was holding over 24,000 for a little bit, and then it has dipped slightly below there. But I mean, on the week, ETH still doing really well, up almost 7%. Bitcoin kind of holding steady at just over 1%. And, I think that this is setting the stage for just a lot of really healthy, a steady up into the right growth, particularly for ETH. When you zoom out on the chart, and I'm not a technical analyst or whatnot, it doesn't give me the impression that there's anything dramatic on the downside to come. Of course, we're always at the mercy of the macro markets, or in the macro global situation, but it feels pretty good right now. This is a nice kind of steady trend line that we're building right here.
Yeah, for the first time since May 30th, ETH got above $2,000. That is how long it has been. I told this story yesterday on one of our shows. Yeah, and I told this story yesterday on one of our shows, and it's not a story. It was just basically the price action right before it happened. We had plunged to 1,700 for the second time. Many of us, myself included, were playing and hoping for a double bottom there because we had touched 1,700 briefly on one of our flush capitulation weeks, and we bounced back above 2K pretty fast. Then we meandered sideways and crabbed for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then we plunged to 1,700 again. We're pussyfooting around. People, half the people think it's going to be a double bottom. The other half say we're going to new lows. Then one weekend, we get a scam pump. That scam pump gets up to $2,015, reverses. We lose 1,700, and everybody knows what happens after that. Now, since we made new lows, my first target was $2,015. Now, why is that? It's because of what we, refer to in technical analysis as price memory. Okay, when, just like a human being, when a traumatic event or an impressionable event, good or bad, happens in an area, when you get back to that area, you tend to see a similar reaction. You get flashbacks. The algos get flashbacks and go, oh, this is that area. And ETH over the weekend got up to $2,019 and has sold off here. Now, as R2 was alluding to, it would have to get below, say, 1,650 to really break the chart. And that's a ways down from here. We don't really want to see that. I do think the bid under ETH will prevent that. Now, could we get down to say 1780, 1750 here? I think that's possible. One interesting thing I would notice, ETH got over 2 grand on Friday as the S&P 500 also made new highs off of its panic lows back in June. Since then, ETH has kind of decoupled because yesterday the S&P, which started the day off weak, ended the day making again new highs off that June low, whereas ETH has continued to remain depressed here, along with Bitcoin and most of the crypto complex, except for Doge, which I guess we could talk about later in the show, which is seeing a nice bid off its Doge chain. It's Alt L1 that launched today. So maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow after a little more research. Bottom line, crypto, which outpaced traditional markets on the way up, is having its pullback right here as traditional markets still kind of eke out new highs on a daily basis. We're right near major resistance, all right? These are healthy pullbacks until they're not. I believe we both have macro tailwinds currently, and the only narrative, and a very bullish one at that, which is the ETH merge, obviously causing ETH to outpace every other coin on its way, every other major coin on its way up here.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't have the article or the tweet pulled up, but I actually just saw an ICO era wallet that had $280 million of ETH in it, has actually just moved its ETH for the first time, kind of leading up to the merge narrative. And I know it kind of spooked some people thinking that, oh, it's time for this wallet to start dumping or something like that. Don't know if that's actually the case, but you know, the
Maybe
traders
they want to stake it.
Yeah, well, and that's just it, right? Maybe they want to stake it. Maybe they want to split it up into a bunch of different wallets and nodes, and you know, it's a lot of ETH. And of course, when it hasn't moved for a long time, people do get spooked because right now, I think everyone's trying to figure out how to actually trade this, right? Like it's big news, but it is quite a bit in advance. I think we all know the bear case is that it either gets delayed again, like it has been seemingly for the past 5 years, or doesn't work properly, which would be really dramatic, but they seem to be taking enough proper precaution and dragging this out over a timeline of which they're not going to put it out into the world without it working 100%, right? So I don't think that there's a huge risk of that, but there's always a risk of that. But, you know, the big question is what happens when the merge actually hits and it works? And the ETH gets staked and locked up. We've talked about a supply crisis, a liquidity crisis in the market. Sorry, not a liquidity, a supply crisis in the market, really tying up a lot of this ETH. The way that the mining ETH works is completely different, right? We're going to have a natural buy pressure on the market, or my apologies, not a natural buy pressure, but the natural sell pressure on the market, which is the inflation of all of the coins hitting the market, drops dramatically by about 6 times, right? So it's going to change the dynamics. And I'm sure that there's some people that are really figuring this out behind the scenes, but I think most people that are saying what they know publicly are just posturing. I think the real ones that have figured it out aren't probably blasting it out on Twitter. You never know, but it is going to be an interesting dynamic. There's a lot of people that just think like ETH, once it goes live and works properly, is going to be up and to the right only until what, 5 grand, 10 grand. There's people that are saying I'm selling everything at 3 grand. And it's going to be a really interesting month for price discovery in ETH as we kind of shift into this new paradigm.
Yeah, I really do think the flippening will occur, as I think Bitcoin will remain. How about we call it stable? We won't call it depressed. Let's say Bitcoin remains stable. I think that would be an arrow in the quiver of maxis. We don't have to frame it in a negative light. Let's say Bitcoin remains stable. The only narrative, as I said, in crypto right now is the ETH merge. And obviously things could go wrong, but let's just examine a world in which everything goes right. Okay. What is happening outside right now? macro tailwinds macro headwinds have abated and almost become tailwinds. And why is that? That's because of positioning. Okay, funds, pensions, anybody who buys and moves the stock market and the bond market are at their smallest allocations in decades. They are not positioned right now. And let's look at ETH, 110% off the lows. The S&Ps in traditional markets, 20 to 30% off the lows. And none of these guys bought back in. We're still at the lowest allocations in decades. Right now, they are being forced to chase. These guys are praying for a bad economic data point somewhere where they can start to position themselves back in. If data remains soft, that is inflation data remains soft, and there's more and more evidence that the Fed can stop their campaign of raising, this is just going to be a tailwind to that supply crisis we've been talking about. Now, we've been talking about the merge. I know technically crypto has for 7 years. We've been talking about it on our show since the inception as the merge has been closer and closer. And it's been a major event. And we were talking at the merge at $3,000 and $4,000 ETH. And we were worried about price in a sense. We said that, look, this could be a sell the news event. All right. Well, long before the merge was even slated, we had the worst bear market in crypto ever. And a lot of the air in whatever sell the news balloon there could be has been taken out. If we rushed back to 3,000 before the merge, yeah, I think we would get a pretty good sell the news reaction. If we were here at 18 or 1900 or 2000 into the merge, maybe we would get a quick bear trap right after. But boy, I mean, I think that we are setting up, and it may not pan out. Again, I was talking about this for a while. We're very data dependent right now. We have to pay attention to economic data because it was the macro that started the ball rolling. And right now, it's the tailwind behind us giving us that extra push. If that ends, well, we could think that those upper end targets probably won't be hit. But I as we get close to it, and you always have to assess reality, right? You can't just you plan and you think and you whatever. As we get towards it, it just to me really feels like the merge is a very, very bullish situation for ETH price, short term, medium term, and long term. And sure, there will be a big pullback along the way, but the fact that we're coming off 800 lows, there's really not much more to say on the downside.
Yeah, and I think the important thing that you said there was the long term, right? This is incredible news for ETH in the long term as climate change conversations continue to dominate the news and politics and whatnot. ETH putting that on the wayside is only just a really, really good narrative for it over the long term. I think all of those short term, just people chattering about ETH being bad for the environment doesn't really have as much impact on it as people tend to think. But again, when you're investing and you're holding for the long term, those big picture narratives start to really play out in a big way, right? So I think that that's going to be incredibly important. And the ETH merge for the transactability, the throughput of it, the lowering of the gas fees, the yield and the staking and all of that stuff over a long term, those are really going to compound upon themselves and really solidify ETH's spot as number two. I know you think that there's a flippening, but I do always just see Bitcoin and ETH being 1 and 2 right now, and then pretty much everything else being altcoins, at least for the time being. I'm sure there will be a competitor in the future that does something very different and changes the game. But I think that ETH has this incredible complexity and the ability to build and develop on it and create all of these incredible things that the world needs, whether it knows it yet or not. And then Bitcoin has kind of its counterpart in its just simplicity. It just works. It just exists. There's not a lot of need for updates and changing. And sure, people will build L2 on top of it and, the Lightning Network so that it's faster in transactability and can be used as currency a little bit easier. But I do think that they very beautifully kind of serve the opposite use cases for it, and it's going to be very hard to dethrone the two of them. So
And
ETH
well,
merge, yeah.
no, and I just want everyone to remember there are three main cases for the bullishness of the ETH merge, right? It's the technical aspect which causes this supply crisis and sell imbalance that we've talked about, okay? But what really is the most bullish aspect to me is that now this is appealing to institutions for the yield, okay? Remember, if everything the stock market is built on is figuring out how to get a yield on the internet, right? What are businesses built on top of? It's getting a yield on the internet. Well, now there's a guaranteed 3 to 5% yield on the new internet that institutions can buy without thinking. The ETH now becomes the most important yield mechanism in the world. That is
Yeah,
what's
for
really
NFT
bullish to me.
degens and DeFi degens, 5% seems like unfathomably low. And why would you ever do
No,
that? But that's also,
fuck that. Wait,
I
not
know.
your yield. Exactly.
Yeah. It
No,
is
no,
infinitely harder to get incredible returns on $100 billion than it is degen trading, $10,000.
Yep.
Right.
Right. And these large pensions have to allocate hundreds of millions to each trade. And now they can get a guaranteed 3 to 5% that isn't dependent on earnings, that isn't dependent on the economy. This is the most profound thing that is going to be happening post merge, and
it's denominated in an asset that actually improves or value increases in value above the S&P, the NASDAQ, everything else too, right? That 5% yield is in that currency.
Yep. 1 Ether will be unattainable for most people as this becomes basically a global bond for the largest institutions in the world.
Yeah, that's really, I mean, people say that about Bitcoin all the time. 21 million Bitcoin and, 7-8 billion people in the world right now. The average person simply cannot have it. That is also true for ETH, just not in quite the same way, but the circulating supply 120 million, and that is not going to go up very quickly anymore. Some will say that it might even be deflationary.
And why, because the hunt for yield never ends in the world. It's the one constant. It is gravity. It is the one thing that is just constantly moving. It is the tides of the ocean. That there's going to be constant demand for that yield. Constant. It is mind-boggling in my mind.
That was very poetic. Gravity, I like it. Let's start shifting into some other news articles and get away from the macro markets. First thing, I guess, a lot of people were talking about yesterday, and this is just a side tidbit, but interesting conversation to be had. And I didn't even bring this up on the pre-show because I forgot about it. But the Bored Ape Yacht Club just hit 1 million followers. It was trending on Twitter, as it kind of tends to be a lot anyways. But people were trying to figure out what was going on. It was simple. They hit 1 million followers. That's no small feat. But one of the things that I thought was really interesting of it was that, I hope that we look back on Bored Ape Yacht Club. This is the preeminent brand in Web3 and NFTs, right? It's got worldwide recognition. Even if people don't know what NFTs are or vaguely aware of it, you show them the picture of the Bored Ape and they tend to just be like, oh yeah, I have seen those. I've seen them on Justin Bieber's profile. I've seen them when Jimmy Fallon changed his Twitter profile picture to that. Madonna. There's the list of celebrity Bored Apes has under their umbrella is actually incredibly massive. And I thought it was interesting because they just hit 1 million followers. That's not a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, right? And when we look back,
has almost 1 million followers, right?
Yeah, exactly. And when we look back on this, going into the next bull run of NFTs or whatever, and I made a video about this yesterday. I want everyone to just remember when you're coming at us being like on the show, and we were the recipient of this all the time. Remember Hape Beast, remember Squiggles, remember all of those garbage projects that people were like, look, they have 300,000 people on Twitter. They have 150,000 people in their Discord. Don't come at us and be like, that's the next blue chip because they faked their metrics and bought tons of engagement, or engagement farmed it with, all of the 25 alt accounts that the average NFT trader has to try and get the allow list farming going, because it doesn't mean shit when the biggest NFT project in the world, the most successful one, has only 1 million followers. That's one, how early we are, but that's two, just goes to show that every other following on this is one of the only numbers that matters. I checked Doodles, they have like 250K, right? I checked Cool Cats, they have like 200K. Good projects, high floor, long-standing projects. So it's just bullshit when these small NFT projects, grift everybody into believing that they're the next blue chip, that they're the next Bored Apes because they've faked some Twitter metrics, right? Think about how long it took Bored Apes just to get to 1 million followers. 1 million followers, not a lot in the grand scheme of things.
Yep. And you see the difference between an account that doesn't buy followers and does, and has real organic growth. So that's Bored Apes.
And isn't retweeting like, oh, we've partnered with, shit cats gutter crew, and retweet and like this and follow us for a chance at one of 10 whitelists and stuff like that too. Like, Bored Apes isn't doing any of that stuff. They're not engagement farming. This is the sign of a real organic community, one that I'm not actually a part of. But, again, another reason to just look at what Yuga has done right,
Yep. Absolutely.
So I just thought that was an important topic. It doesn't need to be talked about too much longer than that. But again, just
CEO over at Yuga Labs, and Guy Osiri running their marketing and interfacing with Web2 in Hollywood.
There you go. Let's get into the Tornado Cash conversation. We talked about this briefly on the last show. The conversation definitely is not dead yet. We had the creator of Tornado Cash got picked up. Was it in Finland? I should have looked that up before.
When we talk about Tornado, I get sucked in.
Hey-o.
Dutch. Yeah, the land
Dutch. Yes. So this is not just an American situation that's going down where the U.S. Department of Justice and the SEC, all of the regulatory bodies, are against Tornado Cash. This is becoming a little bit of an epidemic, a little bit, bigger than that. These European countries getting on board with it. But we had a really great conversation about this in the pre-show. And, the one thing is, it's definitely a war on code. We've seen that narrative go on Twitter. And I think that's very important, right? Because we look at these ideas of, I just made some code that serves a function, should I be accountable because somebody is using that code for illegal purposes, much in the same way that we say with gun manufacturers, should gun manufacturers be held accountable because they were used for, something nefarious? Should cigarette companies, big tobacco companies, all of these things kind of fit the same mold? Can you be arrested because you were within a half a mile of a drug dealer? Well, you were in proximity of them. And this is where the conversation is really starting to go now. We saw the troll that sent 0.1 ETH to all of the influencers' wallets in there. Now wallets that have ever been associated with Tornado Cash, used it or received it, are being blacklisted and flagged and all of that stuff. The conversation is getting pretty deep. There's a big privacy narrative to it as well. And, we got to remember that privacy is good. I think most people in this space inherently believe that. They're not necessarily using or trading crypto because they think it's the way of the future and it's all privacy and whatnot. But I think most people in this space are aware of the fact that even if you're not doing anything wrong, privacy is a good thing. Right? You should have the right to privacy within your own home. You never do that. Well, if I'm not doing anything wrong, why would I be worried about them watching me? Why would I be worried about them coming into my house? No, you just, there are slippery slopes to go down. This, you put it, is basically, the Silk Road 2.0. They're going after the big one, the brand name, but these are going to pop up time and time again. There's the genie's out of the bottle. There's no really stopping it. This is just them basically making an example and, maybe just a little bit of a scare tactic, right?
Yep. I mean, this is essentially a privacy coin, right? It helps ETH be its own privacy coin. And You could bet that's going to be a battle too. I know a lot of people are betting on ZK and Monero as well. And I love the concept there, and maybe one of those is going to be successful, but I would expect battles there as well. I would think governments like blockchain for its transparency. It's
Oh, they
electronic,
do.
it's
They love
easy.
it. They just need to shut down things like this to make their life even easier.
Right. So the beautiful thing about the Ethereum network, on which Ether is the native token, is it can't be regulated, right? It exists in many countries, in many places, and if one area or municipality or country shut it down using their own Web 2 tactics, right? ETH still exists and Ethereum still exists. And you're going to see, as R2 alluded to, many Tornado Cash clones pop up. And then when those get taken down, you're going to see bots that create new clones anytime one is taken down. And that's just how Web3 works. And you can't regulate Ethereum. All this are signs that the government is about to take blockchain very seriously, which may sound scary on its face, but is the reason everyone listening is about to become millionaires.
Yeah, it definitely needs to happen, whether we like it or not. Sometimes we can be our own worst enemies with our ideals and whatnot. And I'm not saying that, like, I believe regulation is always a good thing, but we have an impetus to support people that are looking at blockchain favorably and want to regulate it on it favorably, because regulation is coming whether we like it or not. It just is. You can move to a place if you don't like the regulation that your local government implements, right? You can do that. That's the most powerful vote you have. But it's coming whether we like it or not. The fact that this is happening, free market is 100% correct. It means that they are taking it seriously. They do care about where this is going. Not care about it in the sense that, like, they want to foster an incredible community or anything like that, but they care about it because people are using it. It's been an incredible wealth creation mechanism. And there's clearly a demand, as we see with places like BlackRock. Like, there's clearly a demand from very, very, very wealthy people that contribute politically for crypto. So are they going to get rid of it? No. Do they want people staying in their lane and just participating in it in the same way that they would, with cash? And cash isn't without its own stuff, issues too, right? Like, cash is the most anonymous, like, transactable, form of currency we have. Like, I mean, I'm talking hard cash, right? They know that. They're not going to push that narrative. They want it to be on crypto, but it's all just to get the regulations that they see fit and they can control it. But I mean, the whole conversation it's incredible, and it's one that needs to be had, and it's one that needs to continue. But going after the devs, yeah, I mean, it's a tough look for sure. Let's not forget, though, we mentioned Silk Road, right? Ross Ulbricht is in prison right now for creating a marketplace that people used to transact in illegal goods. And, while the story or the narrative is that they did their best to pull down, like, the really, dark stuff off of that, he basically was saying, I didn't, force somebody to buy this drug and send this cryptocurrency to them. I just created a platform in which people could transact, and people decided to use it in a bad way. Now, that story goes deeper because there was some murder for hire type stuff, and then whether he was framed for that, not that or not, is a big conversation and whatnot. Very interesting stuff. But they're still lobbying to try and get this guy out of prison because he got a very, very big prison sentence. And the conversation is around, this guy didn't really do anything. He wasn't buying the drugs, as far as we know. He wasn't buying the guns, as far as they know, right?
Yeah, and just remember, they cannot regulate ETH or anything on it. All they can regulate are the faucets and the
Yes.
on-ramps
Yeah.
to crypto, which, yes, can be crippling. But remember, you're building towards it. One day you'll be able to buy things in a store with ETH. Okay. One day there will be.
You can right now. Go to the Gucci store. Go buy it.
Exactly. So what we should always just remember is that no matter how scary the legislation sounds, they can't regulate anything. The other thing to remember is public will means something. These guys are your servant, okay? If the public wants something and makes noise about it, they're going to get it because these people want to be reelected. So it will be this thing of them slowly discovering they can't regulate it while public opinion increases in a favorable way and forces them to just come to a level-headed compromise in whatever sense that is.
Yeah, it's going to be very important. Just in, like, that's why, if you've made a good amount of money and you are comfortable with the idea of it, like, donating to political candidates actually goes a very far way, right? There's the reason why these candidates that are incredibly well funded from their PACs and the big corporations that donate to them really have a leg up on these smaller candidates that aren't as well funded and have a really hard time fundraising, right? So if there's a political candidate in your area or your country and donations are allowed to them and whatnot, and you can support them, that stuff does go a long way, really. And it, depending on how much wealth you have created through these mechanisms, could really be of a huge benefit to you. There's a reason why these billionaires make huge donations to political candidates and political parties, because they're looking out for their best interests and they want somebody representing them in the office, right? It's as simple as that. So,
right. The politicians are tools for large corporations. And the only thing the banking system wants, as they've now accepted they can't stop this, is they want to slow it down as much as possible so they can pack their bags. That's all. Just don't sell them all the assets they want at a discount.
That's 100% right. Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get into the next hot topic that we saw over the weekend and talk about NFT creator project royalties. Huge discussion on this. I think the biggest takeaway that ended up happening, and I saw this narrative kind of creep into the conversation yesterday, was just that, like, hey, all these different NFTs are all serving very different purposes, right? One can be music, one can be just for pure art, some can be for utility, some are going to be for fractional ownership of something. And maybe the royalties need to be nuanced and adjusted to what the project or what the NFT is trying to achieve. That was kind of a bit of a cop-out answer, because I think people were just maybe even getting tired about arguing for or against it. We also saw, and we're going to get, I think, a pretty good podcast about even, this is stepping away from the conversation a little bit, but Kobe battling it out with some NFT people, basically saying that, anybody that traded NFTs like an altcoin did very well because they are simply altcoins with a picture attached to them. Some people in agreement, some people not, but a lot of just like polarization on Twitter right now. Let's go into the royalty conversation. How do you feel about this? What was your take? Did you engage in any of it on Twitter, or were you just reading?
No, I didn't read about it, nor would I ever engage about a topic so stupid. Why do I love Ethereum? Because of my name. My name is Free Market Capitalist. And the simple answer here is the market will decide. This is not, no one, money, ETH, what people buy and what people support is what will decide this quote unquote argument. And that's what's beautiful here. This is an unregulated free market. And if we look at all markets, it's a battle between three parties: the manufacturer, the middleman, and the consumer. Okay. There is a constant tug of war between all three parties to try to get the largest piece of the pie. The consumers use social tactics and, oh, woe is us, we need to be taken care of. And it's true, because consumers vote with their pocketbooks. So if you don't coddle them and take care of them and look like, at least have the perception that you are on their side, they'll take their business elsewhere. Okay. So always Not oh, in Web3, these debates spring up from time to time. It's bored people in a bear market, engagement whores, addicted to the Twitter app with nothing really to talk about.
This
Some,
is what my big takeaway too, for sure.
yeah,
Boredom. Yeah.
yeah. Some artists and some collections will do very well using royalties. Some artists and some collections will do very well not using royalties and coming up with other innovative ways to continue to profit on their IP that they have created. So there is no right answer. There's no wrong answer. It's a dumb debate. Some people will use them well, some people will not. The market, in the end, will decide what is acceptable, and it will decide that with its pocketbook.
Yeah, I had a couple of big takeaways too, and I do think that boredom was the key factor in all of these conversations. I do think that a lot of it is NFT traders that are getting into the dog days of summer. I think the free mint meta is starting to slow down a little bit, and I think people are starting to realize that not ETH trading, NFT trading right now has just been PvP against the same 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 10,000 people, however you want to call it, right? It's kind of essentially a poker table where you're at the casino, there's 10 people sitting at this table, they're all relatively of the same skill level, right? And they're just playing, and they're playing and playing. And, on a day-to-day basis, player 2 might win. They might do really well. Player 4 might get hot and do really well. Player 6 might run bad, not do very well. Over a longer period of time, because they're all the same skill level, they're kind of just breaking even. They're just passing money between each other. In a situation like that, where you don't have tons of new people coming into the poker room, like we don't have tons of new people coming into the NFT space right now, who wins in that situation, right? Who's the big winner? It's always the casino. You're not playing against the house. They're just taking their rake, or they're taking their session fees. Little bit, 2.5%, 3%, 5%, whatever the rake is at that casino. Right now, to me, it's NFT traders that are bored. There's not a lot of new money coming into the marketplace. They're just passing their ETH back and forth. And every time that they trade something, whether it was a free mint or not, OpenSea is taking their 2.5%. LooksRare is taking their 2%. X2Y2 is whatever their royalty is. And then the creators are taking their 5%, their 6%, their 7.5%, their 3%. People are feeling the woes of their edge being diminished, and they're looking to regain it in any possible way that they can. And the easiest target is to create a narrative that royalties are bad for NFT projects, that they shouldn't exist. It wasn't too long ago that GameStop, before it became a meme stock, was under because they were reselling games very, very aggressively. They were not giving people very much money for it. They would say, "Oh, you have this game that just came out 3 months ago and you're done playing it. Well, we'll give you $15 for it, even though you just spent $90." And then they'll put it back on the shelf for $60, and it's a used game. As long as it works properly, what is the incentive to buy the new product versus the slightly used product for $30 cheaper? They sell it for $60. That person goes, plays it, beats it, gets bored of it, brings it back to GameStop, recuperates $15 for it. They put it back on the shelf. They could sell the same game 3, 4, 8, 10 times, and the margin completely goes to them. And game developers were sitting on the side going, they're gutting our revenue streams because they just keep selling it over and over and over again. And we sell a game once, GameStop sells it 7 times, and they're the big winners here. GameStop was the enemy not too long ago. People hated GameStop. They were a cancer on the gaming industry. And now they're beloved because, well, meme stocks. But it's essentially the same thing here in a way, is that, they have the initial mint price, the purchaser buys it, and then they sell it, and then these assets get transferred many, many times. I was under the impression before I got into NFTs that creator royalties in perpetuity were one of the big selling points of why NFTs are important, why they're powerful. Somebody that can create a successful brand, a successful art project, a successful music project can continue to participate in the success of their own brand even after they've released these things into the wild. And now are you selling for, maybe they sold something for $200, an NFT for $200, and now they're selling for $500,000. And like in the case of Yuga Labs, right? Where would Yuga be if royalties didn't exist for them? I don't know the answer to that. But I thought this was an important narrative to push NFTs forward, right? To stick it to the man, to stick it to all of the Sotheby's and the big auction houses, the ones that are always taking their cut and leaving nothing for the original creator, the initial project founder, right? I thought this was supposed to be a paradigm shift. And now the thing is, well, like, why would you take money? It's mine. Like, I don't know. What's your take on listening to me kind of ramble on about all of this stuff?
I agree with all your takes. And, what I think what people should realize is that of those three, the creators are the most innovative, right?
100%.
Because people that tend to get together and entrepreneur, for lack of a better term, they will out innovate the middleman and the consumer. So and the consumer always votes with their pocketbook. Mm-hmm. If something the creator isn't doing is not working, the creator class is going to adapt. We've seen it a million times. Hell, we call it metas. And it's just going to continue on. And again, in these low volume times, when again, we can get into NFTs, it's bleak. It is bleak right now. It's almost worse than a month and a half ago. Volume is completely gone. There are even the random free mint pumps become far and few between. And if you are sitting on large piles of liquidity, sure, it's a great time to shop legacy collections, both medium tier and high tier. Otherwise,
yeah, low tier, you're playing roulette for sure.
You are. And otherwise, just tough out there. If you are a trader, if you're a botter, if you are a minter, those three classes they're having a tough time right now. And, we've seen it. I've seen it during every bearish period, even the less intense ones. We went through a couple of them over the last year. And even through then, you see it every time. The constituency that's losing the most starts screaming about ridiculous. Use every time, and it doesn't matter whether we're talking about unions and corporations. This happens anywhere there is a market. And again, I believe that creators are going to out innovate whatever is thrown at them, though. As an analyst, as somebody who watches, I don't even think it's going to be an issue. I think royalties will just continue as they always had. And some projects may be smart by leveraging the no royalty thing, or they may have another angle, and people are going to point to it and say, see, this isn't, no, that is a creator out innovating his fellow creators. So we'll see. I don't think this conversation really is of any substance to be debated.
I don't think it has much legs. I agree. I do think that you might see a shift towards less aggressive creator royalties. I do think that there's going to be a constant pressure, not from traders, but from competition on marketplace royalties, right? If OpenSea starts to lose a lot of their moat, a lot of their foothold against Magic Eden now moving into ETH space, Looks Rare, X2, Y2, all of these, competitors, they might be forced to take a hit on their royalties as much as they don't want to, because they're trying to go public, and publicly traded companies do really well. The fatter their margins are, they might have to, but that's from competition. That's not from traders yelling about the fact that they're taking money out of my pocket. I also find it very fascinating to the fact that when volumes were at all-time highs and the money was coming in like nobody's business and people were making money hand over fist. We're talking not 10%, not 50%, not 100%, but like 200, 500, 1,000% on a single trade daily. And this was happening daily. Nobody gave a shit about this 5%, this 7.5%. Right now, this is just desperation of my way of making money is at risk, and I don't want to shift what I'm doing. Therefore, other people should. These people will have to shift, right? Now, some of the deeper discussions about what is justified in royalties I thought were really interesting, and that's a even bigger topic right now. But that is something, as Free Market said, will be on creators to innovate with, right? And that will continue to happen. So, conversation born out of boredom on Twitter, but fascinating nonetheless, because there were some people out there that had some really good takes. It was an interesting conversation to sit on the sidelines with, but I do think some people were really straying far away from why we were here in the first place, and that is to do things differently than the way we were in the past. I mean, Web 2, right? So I think royalties are here to stay. I think that there will be shifts, there will be meta changes, as Free Market said, but I do think that they will continue to be there, and I do think it's very important, right? It was one of the things that attracted me to this space.
Look,
yeah.
I think that if you ask somebody what is innovative about Ethereum, and you can't say the word decentralization, they may have a hard time answering it, but the answer is smart contracts, right? And you may look at all these issues and go, why can't a smart contract just solve all of it? Why are we even debating these things, right? Like all this shit should just be an option in a smart contract. We don't need to pay human beings millions of dollars like we are at OpenSea to do what a smart contract can do, all right? The whole point with DeFi is that there are functions done by centralized organizations that are not only inefficient, but are very open to security threats of people extorting, selling, whatever it is. This is what smart contracts can solve. Put the option in there, let the public decide, and period. And that's kind of what Looks Rare is doing to it, you know. And I'm not even petitioning for removing all of the, you know, employees or centralization of a corporate structure, but you can remove most of it. There's shit human beings shouldn't be debating. You can leave a good marketing team there, right? Otherwise, build everything else into the smart contract. So,
yeah, and this isn't even like a proponent for DAOs, because I don't think DAOs work in that regard either. But yeah, I agree with you.
I think
semi-centralized.
The only real debate right now, because who gives a fuck about creators taking a royalty if OpenSea's still taking their 2.5%, right? I mean, royalties in general would be the issue, or the fee, or whatever you want to call it in general would be the issue here that a smart contract could solve, because it could take an infinitesimally smaller amount, make the founders and early investors rich, and just have it done automatically, and nobody would complain, blah, 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 blah. And there are people trying to do that. The thing is OpenSea already too ubiquitous? I think that's a good debate here, right? Because if they're Google, okay, Google was started around the same time as AOL and Yahoo, or not started, but became public and on the stock exchange and really started to take over the world. But who exists? It's Google, right? And it's a verb now. Is OpenSea the global place for all aggregated NFTs? Right now, the answer is yes, and they prove it every day. They are just the one. These other upstarts have a chance, but again, the market will decide, okay? People traditionally are willing to pay a small fee for convenience.
And that's the thing. I wonder about how many people that are having this conversation are just trading daily on OpenSea when there are better opportunities out there like Looks Rare. You can switch to that, but you know, all the volume's on OpenSea, what little is left of it. And that's where they have to go. So
like, why would you sell an ape on OpenSea? You know, I understand when you're dealing with small NFTs and the bonus wouldn't matter or the fee reduction wouldn't matter. Why would you sell it anywhere but there?
Yeah.
It makes no sense. So there are angles these startups can take. But again, There are, DuckDuckGo is an example of a search engine that its angle is privacy, right? But it's infinitesimally small, okay? And its search results are just not as good. They're 95% as good as Google. You can basically find what you're looking for, but that extra 5%, it's a lot about a product, right? Like it means a lot within a product. Every product is good. The ones that are great are the ones that resonate with you. Google's a great product. Is OpenSea that? Traders may argue, but I think it's yet to be seen. Are they Google or Yahoo? That is not my quote. Somebody else said that, and it's a good point. I think that's the better debate here.
Yeah, and for all the shit that Google takes, I mean, you're right. Fundamentally, it's a good product in terms of the search engine, in terms of the maps, in terms of their email service, a lot of which doesn't have a lot of like obvious ad revenue and stuff built into it, right? They make their money in a million other ways. Ads are a huge part of it. But, it's I actually saw a thing on this on Reddit of like comparing Google, 20 years ago or 30 years ago to today. And it's remarkably similar. If you go to google.com, what that page still looks like. It's a search bar, it's Google and search, and I feel lucky, right?
Right.
Like that's it. And it's fast, it's efficient, and it is really, really good at giving you the answers you need. But and that is one of the hard things about like, do you want to use Google on a day-to-day basis? No, but like it's hard to break away from that, right? Very, very interesting topic. The smart contract topic is a big one as well, right? And kind of to cap this conversation off, one solution was like, why aren't royalties built into the smart contract? Because there's ways around that too. If you gift an NFT to somebody and then they gift you 3 ETH, it wouldn't trigger a royalty in there. It would have to rely on a lot of trust to get it done. But it's not just as simple as smart contracts in that regard. Smart contracts do a ton of incredible other things.
And that could be done in traditional art as well, right?
100%, yeah. Broker a private sale for your Monet.
There's security issues in the real world with that, as there would be online, so I think a lot of the stuff we point out is no different from the real world. Yet we have this streamlined, decentralized network with smart contracts.
Yeah, you think somebody's never tried to broker a private sale of an art piece and they get jumped by, organized crime or even just like criminal, right? Like it's happened before, I can guarantee you.
Right.
So, all right, I'm going to turn the music on. We'll go into chill mode here, and let's just have a wind-down conversation about Cool Cat and Pudgy Penguins.
So you're going to say organic nectarines.
Organic nectarines, also good, but not on the topic today. I want to talk less about Cool Cats and what's going on with Cool Cats and how polar opposite it is from a project like Pudgy Penguins, which was not too long ago down in the dump. The founders took off with all of the cash. It was handed over to the community for flipping them in terms of like not.
Something happened to your mic. Can the audience tell me? Because last time I didn't tell.
Can you hear me? Am I good?
Very good, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe I just got rugged a little bit there. Cool Cats was now recently flipped by crypto dick butts. Maybe that comes as a surprise to some people. Maybe it doesn't. Pudgy Penguins has now flipped Cool Cats too. And we are just down bad on Cool Cats. Pudgy Penguins killing it, of course. It was as low as, I think, 0.7, 0.6 for a little bit there. But Cool Cats just announced a t-shirt collab with hundreds, like the Bomb Squad stuff. I don't know, man. I think there's something horribly ironic about a Cool Cat exploding here.
Nobody knows what to do.
In Cool Cats.
Yeah. I mean, Cool Cats literally tried to do a GameFi.
Yep.
Yeah, it's here's the distinction that I would make here, right? A collection, we don't have to say Cool Cats in particular, but a collection like Cool Cats, okay? They're going for a wholesome family image. Now remember, this is an altcoin with an image attached to it that people gamble on. What is wholesome and family oriented about that? This is a tool for people to gamble on or flex in their PFP like gold rims on their Cadillac. All right. What is wholesome about this? Some of these have great IP. Okay. Could you leverage that IP into media? Sure. Why didn't they go in that direction? I have no clue. But they tried to straddle this line of, we're the cute family-friendly thing. Oh, and here's this new GameFi Ponzi scheme you can gamble on. I mean, there was just no...
Sitting in the P2E meta felt like it made a lot more sense because it was something that a lot of companies, projects were doing. It didn't feel like it was as bad. But you're absolutely right. Like gamifying this wholesome, project would be...
These are conflicting messages. These are conflicting...
It would be like the Arthur brand, the kids cartoon show?
Yes.
Coming out with like slot machines.
Right. Exactly. And I am not saying that a NFT collection will not be able to leverage a Kawhi image, but they will take a very, very different approach, certainly, than this project did. Now, what NFT projects can be successful, come back from the dead? The cool and edgy projects. And look at Pudgy Penguin, started by a quote-unquote alleged scammer, right? Really weird history of a community mod, shout out to Cold Pizza, who was offered a job and then they didn't give him a contract. There was all this controversy where Pudgy Penguins went from the mascot, the goofy, funny, you couldn't believe this happened mascot of the initial NFT run to a lost, dead collection mired in blah, blah, blah. But that's the exact type of thing that crypto Twitter would gravitate towards. And crypto Twitter can make certain collections, whether we're talking about Tubby Cats or Miladies or Pudgy Penguins, which while a certain portion of the NFT world has adopted them, they also straddle the crypto Twitter and even finance Twitter, who dabbled in NFTs towards the peak of the initial bull run. Remember, these minted for 0.02. They were originally, while we wouldn't call it maybe a straight scam, we'd call it a cash grab now, right? They probably didn't plan anything beyond trying to sell out at 10,000 0.02 mint.
And they minted at a time where like there wasn't much promise on future utility. That narrative only came later, and a lot of these projects had to almost posthumously, that's a weird word to use, but like after they were kind of done with it, have to come back and be like, oh yeah, like other than the fact that this is like a community we have to do something. And maybe that was one of the big downfalls of Cool Cats, is that they've just felt the pressure to do something. But yeah, sorry, continue.
I always talk about the most important thing to have in markets is disagreement, right? You've now seen ETH and the NASDAQ rally insane amounts off the lows, and it's being called the most hated rally of all time. Sure, retail has been absolutely...
Why?
Because of positioning. I talked about it earlier in the show. While you can argue with sentiment and what people tweet and say and LARP and actually do, if you look at the positioning of people in the stock market and funds, it's the lowest in decades, lower than the great financial crisis, the COVID lows. That's crazy. That is nuts, okay? In a position where it looks like markets overcorrected. Now they've rallied 30% up and people have to decide whether they're going to buy here. No one wants to buy here. Everyone's scared to buy here. Even this little itty bitty pullback, you're getting no one wants to buy yet. It's the most hated rally of all time that nobody is participating in. And I say that by the numbers. Okay.
Yeah, people on and on both sides too. Like you're holding these assets and be like,
Right.
maybe I should sell right now. Where the other people are like, maybe I should buy right now. It almost becomes like a standoff a little bit.
Markets will continue to go up until people agree that we're bullish. That we're caught in that trap right now of no one wants to buy it, but it refuses to go down. It's going to need an exogenous event to knock it down. That is going to be economic data points related to inflation. Okay, so just be on the lookout for those. What I was getting at was disagreement is what fuels trends. And Pudgy Penguins was this thing that, again, the guy who started it, who I won't name, was a quote unquote known scammer. He seemed to get under the skin of a lot of crypto Twitter people initially. Those people rallied against Pudgy, saying, don't buy, at 0.1, at 0.2, at 0.4, at 0.5. These things rallied up to what, 4 ETH, 5 ETH at their peak. And it was one of those things where half the market said, these idiots keep buying a scam. You're buying a scam. And then it just keeps going up. That was the original one of those, where we saw many ones of those in subsequent bull runs. Fishy Fam reminds me of that, where people kept saying that all these things were fishy about it, yet it kept going up. Okay, it was disagreement that fueled a trend. That's what happened with Pudgy Penguins. So I'm not surprised to see them back where they are. They are loved and hated collection. And because of that, I think, crypto dick butts, Pudgy Penguins, I think they're going to hold well here during however long this NFT winter lasts, whether it's 3 months or a year.
Yeah. It's and that's one of the reasons why I think NFTs are having a hard time right now too, is because there's the macro backdrop of crypto and stocks being like, did this run get ahead of itself? Who's actually deploying capital in this? Who's actually selling? Like, where does it go from here? And I think deploying heavily into, a hyper volatile derivative that's built on top of these assets that are going through incredible volatility is a risky play, and is seeing it. But like when I look at something like Cool Cats, I'm in the same kind of dilemma as like, I just don't know not only when to buy, but if to buy, right? Like it just keeps going down lower and lower. And there's times where I'm like, Cool Cats is at 2.2 ETH right now. Like that seems like it should be a buy, but like, is it? Pudgy Penguins is kind of the same thing. Like they've shown resiliency, they've shown community, they've shown a desire for people to have these in the biggest against the odds, right? A founder that soft rugged, hard rugged, scammed, whatever you want to call it, went through all of this drama, turmoil, has gotten off the mat a couple of times and doing well. And that's what's really difficult about NFTs is like, I find finding an entrance and an exit is a very difficult proposition on some of these existing projects, right?
And there is no volume to sustain a pump,
Right. Yeah, that's the other thing too, is like, why can't all of these go lower?
Yeah, like if you see a tweet or a news article about it, it's over. You missed it. That was the pump. And again, I think that these collections we just talked about will relatively hold their value. I don't think anything can really pump in this environment. And look, one day that could change overnight. But as Poof from Ether Orcs has pointed out with some great threads.
Yeah, he's been killing it. Yeah.
The last few weeks, there's not a lot of ETH in wallets that buy NFTs. And that will change eventually as ETH settles down. Again, it's funny because you would think, all these rational people are going to load up on the ETH at 900 because it is so cheap, fill up those wallets, and then they could buy NFTs. No, people are going to load up on ETH at 2,900 when they've been forced bullish by price action that just doesn't calm down or really give them a chance to get in. So,
yeah, I was trying to find some kind of joke in the in that ICO era wallet that just moved the $280 million of like that, like, oh, just found, 150,000 ETH. Which floor should I sweep? Right? Like that finally coming back in, but those days are not happening right now.
Well,
So
there's probably a few scenarios, right? You could argue that this person didn't see the big drawdown this year coming, but was calm enough to wait for the quote unquote dead cat bounce or bear market rally to actually unload instead of selling at the lows like some people would have panicked and done. They could be thinking, oh, the merge is so bullish for technical and narrative reasons that it would be a great time to dump into it. Or maybe the more optimistic take is that they want to stake it all in the new ETH2 contract or protocol or happy dappy doodah.
yeah, I should look into like who it's suspected that this is, but I don't think.
I'm going to clear the air right now. It's not me.
Yeah, I suspected it might have been you, but I'm glad you cleared that up. So,
yep.
Oh, ICO era. I misunderstood this. I thought the ICO era meant like the ICO like pump and dump time of 2017, 2018. It was actually the Ethereum ICO.
Yeah, I assumed you meant Genesis wallets.
No, I was just in my mind thinking like some kind of like ICO that did one of the huge raises back then, but they would have been able to tie that. I was
thinking for both of us. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, what a time to buy. Eh? They're sitting a cool 1,000 times up on that investment.
Would they pay 36 cents?
No, I believe the Ethereum ICO was somewhere around $1 or $2. It did drop down to 36 cents, but didn't last very long. So yeah, good time to buy.
Let's go 100x leverage right there at 36 cents. Just leave it.
You just, I think you would, I think you would probably have like all of the money in the world at that point.
You would own Binance and FTX.
Yeah. You might have actually just single-handedly killed crypto because you'd be the only person that has anything.
It would be worth it. Screw everybody else.
Your bag of 45 million ether and nobody else giving a fuck about it because
doesn't Justin Tron have that much? Why hasn't he broken ETH?
Justin Sun? Did you call him Justin Tron?
Look, everyone knows exactly who the fuck I was talking about.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
God, yeah.
Oh man, well, this has been a lot of fun, Free Market. It's a second episode back, and I'm glad that we are doing it. What do you got going on today?
Well, I'm going to try to figure out how we can start broadcasting on chain.
That sounds expensive.
I've been told it will cost us 0.01 per minute. That may add up over.
That's probably cheap, actually. I think when I saw how much a gigabyte worth of space on the ETH network is, it's like in the billions of dollars.
But could you imagine being
or millions? A lot. Yeah.
Imagine our moving images being immutable.
The path to immortality. Well, if anybody listening or watching wants to start donating to make that a reality, so I'll post the address below. Just kidding. Speaking of people watching and listening, love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning. We're going to be going live again on Friday morning, and we're doing the 2 episodes a week again as life clears up and as the market kind of creates a little bit more exciting narratives, particularly on NFTs. We'll start ramping that up a little bit. Always appreciate your time, love. It's been really, really nice to have so many people reach out saying that they're happy that the show has been back on. I am going to ask this of you, though. I hope that you guys are all subscribed, but if you could hit the like button on this episode, it does actually make a big difference. We are trying to position ourselves so that we can continue to grow, continue to create good stuff here, and have a lot of excitement around the AM show. So every little bit that you guys do to help is incredibly appreciated. So if you could do that for us, it would mean the world. And if not, I won't lose any sleep over it. On that note, Free Market, Get us out of here.
Good luck at the tables, D-Gens.